Guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. If you're new, welcome. Hit the subscribe button. You know what to do. To all my people who are subscribed, welcome back. Today I'll be doing like a young background, if I could put it. Hence the title, All Things Poetry. So today I'll basically be talking about like my journey in poetry. Yeah, because I feel like it's something that like I am so passionate about. So yeah, today that's what we'll be talking about, what I'll be telling y'all about actually. And then yeah, without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so before I get into it, I looked up the definition of poetry. So what it basically says is that it is work in which the expression of feelings and ideas is given intensely by the use of distinctive style and rhythm, poems collectively or as a genre of literature. Right. Let's see, is there any other definition? Poetry is a form of literature that uses I can never say this word, aesthetic and often rhythm qualities of languages. Yeah. Okay, so that is the internet definition of poetry. My definition of poetry is I don't know. Poetry is everything that you're not able to say and able to put on paper. You know, like sometimes you go through scenarios or situations where you have so much to say, and then when you get the opportunity, you don't really say much. So for me, poetry is so powerful. It's another form of communication. It is like, because what do we have? We have 11, is it 11 official languages. Like poetry, I'ma just say it is the 12th because poetry is a different kind of language, man. It's like, it's expression, it's feeling, it's putting your mind on paper, you know, and then having the ability to express it, to perform it. You know, for me, poetry, for me, coming from my whole story of poetry, for me, I am quite the expressive person, right? But that's now in terms of anger, in terms of sadness. But when it comes to love and it comes to like meaningful kind of topics, it's kind of hard for me to express that, because sometimes I feel like I'm talking and people don't really want to hear my opinion, or they automatically think something else. So my poetry was a way of putting it, because for me, back in primary, people always used to tell me, the guys that could rap always used to tell me, they're like, poetry is rap, rap is poetry. And I never understood that until now, and I'm like, it kind of makes sense, because people often respond to like when you're using metaphors, when you're using music in the background, when you're using different styles, when your tone changes, all those things. So I was like, wow. And then I realized poetry is actually even more powerful when you include all these different styles and everything. And so I had always been good with creative writing. I'd always been good with it. Like for me, give me a dope ass topic and I'll be out here writing speeches, essays, like I'm down. Like I used to sit with the dictionary next to me and actually write, looking for new words every time. So from that, I was like, interesting. It would seem that maybe it is possible that I could write poetry also, because poetry is not for everybody. I'm gonna just say that. And just because you're a good rapper, or you're a good creative writer, or you're good with your words, it doesn't mean like when you actually do the whole poetry thing, it's gonna make sense. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool, let me try it out. But let me just tell you guys, my inspiration in terms of poetry and how I began with poetry comes from listening to other poets. Like hearing all these other poets and hearing them express. Some poets come through with some like topics that are so deep, so personal, you feel like you're in their world, right? And some poets come up speaking of a topic that like everybody knows and topics that get discussed on a daily, but the way they put it in that poem is just like, wow. So of course I have to give a shout out to WOW, the poetry event that I attend, because that's when I first decided, you know what, I'm finna do this. Like listening to everybody, I was like, it's amazing. Poetry is so amazing, guys. Like it moves through the soul. I don't even know how to explain it to you. It is such a deep form of expression. So from that poetry event, which was maybe a year or two back, it seems like such a long a year or two. Yeah, a year or two back. I'm gonna go with a year. Sorry, I'm gonna go with a year ago. And just so they have this thing. I don't know if every poet knows it or everybody uses it, but it's basically your voice, finding your voice to express your poetry. Remember I said poetry goes on paper. It's your words, and then eventually you end up expressing it in the way that you would like to. So now finding your poetry voice is a whole different story, because you could write poetry. I know a lot of poets who write poetry, but when you're like, okay, express it, say it, it's just like, I used to be that person when I first started. But how you find your poetry voice is just like, in your mind, you obviously have a certain way of how you're writing your poetry, the expression you're using, the emotion you're using. So when you say it, you have to say it the way you want it to sound. You can't just be saying, okay, first of all, you can't just be like reading it like no expression whatsoever. Number two, you have to say it the way you're feeling it. Like when you perform your poetry, people need to feel your emotion. Like, you know how nice it is hearing somebody perform a poem about a certain situation, and you never met that person, you've never spoken to that person, you were not there in that kind of situation, but the way they have decided to express their poetry verbally, and you imagine yourself there in that situation. You know how amazing that is? Like there are so many poets who do that, you know? So poetry is very amazing, guys. It's very deep. My poetry journey is, so I started with the name Ethel Louise. That was my stage name when I had first started, which was last year, performing and writing. So I chose the name Ethel Louise. Okay, from my previous videos, you guys will know I chose the name Ethel Louise because she's the goddess who washes away pain. So I was like, I totally relate to this because that's what I'm trying to do with my poetry, you know, because I had a lot of things to get rid of, and I was like, okay, cool, this matches. And then now, as y'all can see on my YouTube channel, also I changed it everywhere. I changed it on all my social platforms to Sapphire Advika, because now I feel like I've washed away all that pain. Now I have even more things to express. I have healing to express, joy to express, certain topics to talk about in my poetry. I have so much more. So I changed it from Ethel Louise to Sapphire Advika because I was like, okay, this is a transition. Coming from my pain, washing it all away. There's this one poem that I wrote, still yet to perform. It's called She Who Washes Away Pain, which is the definition of Ethel Louise. So I was just like, okay, from that, now I'm going to Sapphire Advika because that's like a new me, if I can put it. That's a new becoming of me in everything that I do. Ethel Louise was just for my poetry. And Sapphire, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to use it for everything because this is me. I finally reached that place of healing thanks to poetry. Like I could have never thought that poetry was going to be the reason why today I can express the way I express myself, why I can speak to people about certain things that in the past I would never be able to, you know. So poetry is like such an amazing journey. It really is, and I feel like there's so much more to learn. There's so many more topics to talk about. There is so many. Poetry gives you that platform that really no other platform will give you, if you get what I mean. It really is that platform where you can just talk about anything that you like without being judged, without being, you know, because at the end of the day, you're putting your work out there, and your work is your form of expression. It is how you felt when you wrote that poem, or whatever you were going through, you know. Another thing that I like about poetry is that it doesn't have to be based on your situation. It can be based on anything that you're feeling, anything that you see, anything that you feel like talking about. Like for me personally, when I was at the Louise, I was writing about what I was feeling, right? Now that I'm Sapphire Advika, I realized that I can write about other people's situations, or situations that I see, problems that I see, topics that I feel like need to be expressed, which is amazing. It is so amazing because, like I said, no other platform will give you this opportunity the way poetry does. Like talking in a conversation, having conversations with people, you know, talking about certain topics. You won't necessarily get to express yourself 100%, but now when you write a poem, it's just, you know, there's something about the world and people who respond. We respond to rhythm, we respond to music, we respond to poets, we respond to art, like we respond to any form of art, and that's what makes it amazing. Because say for instance you get a politician, or you get a lecturer, or a what are they called, an activist, who is expressing something, and not a lot of people will listen to them, right? But if you take that same topic, put it in a poem, put it in music, create a little 1-2, you have people's attention. And that's just the way it is. Like, it's not even something that I'm making up, you know. Take yourself, for instance. I'm sure there's music that speaks to you as a person, whereas if somebody was just talking, or just somebody just dropped a hint, or somebody just touched lightly on that topic, you weren't really gonna you would hear them, you know, but you weren't gonna really process it, or you weren't really gonna take it in or take it serious. Somebody went and put it in a song, somebody went and put it in a poem. Magic after that. So yeah, guys, and that is why I'm so grateful for the poetry platform that is given to us by Wow Poetry, because number one, it's the kind of environment where everybody who attends that event, right, knows you're coming to a place where people are expressing what needs to be expressed by them. So coming there, you cannot come with judgment, you cannot come with being irritated with a certain topic. You cannot come there with a closed mindset. Poetry is about perspective. It is about having an open mind, because the topic that you're not ready to talk about is something that somebody is, and they went and put that in a poem and performed it and put some sauce on it and got the crowd going. Like, you know, there needs to be more poetry platforms. I'm so serious about this. There needs to be more poetry platforms. I finna make this happen. Because art in general, and you know, when I'm talking about art, I'm not talking about like just canvases, art galleries. Art is your talent, your skill, your thing that you're good at. That's art. That's a form of art. Yeah, I should say that. Forms of art. Yeah, man. We need more of these things. So many people are out there talented, and Poetry just gives a voice to those who don't have one, and that's what makes it amazing. So yeah, guys. So the words of wisdom that I have for you guys is never feel like you're not able to express who you are. Never feel that, because if you're able to write it down, do so. Like, people always think diaries and stuff are cornish, cheesy, they're not manly, they don't make sense. Don't do that to yourself. Don't believe that, guys. Express yourself in any way. When people tell you that you're different and that you're weird, take that as a compliment, because that's just something that they cannot do. There is something that you do that they cannot do, and that's a form of art. So yeah, always express yourself. Always. We live in a world where some things are not accepted in society and some things are. It's not even, how can I put this? As a younger generation also, it's not even about that anymore. It's not. It's about expressing yourself and rolling with the punches, standing firm in what you believe in, just being you and doing the most. Because yeah, perfect your craft, Ben. Perfect your craft. It is what you are. It is what it is. Yeah, guys.